The EDSA narrative provides its adherents a meaningful way of making sense of the world based on a valorizing worldview. In this narrative, the Philippines is like the chosen people of Israel, who were delivered from bondage of dictatorship and ushered into the promised land of freedom. The past 5 years under Duterte, however, would have felt like an exile for the opposition. Their defeat in the midterm election of 2019 signaled the prolonging of this exile from power. The recent death of Noynoy Aquino has been used to revive their fortunes in time for next year's polls. So can they return to power in 2022? Join me as we explore this question here on The Cusp. In opposition, the Liberals and their allies have had time to reflect. Why have they fallen so out of favor with voters? Just like the exilic Jews who pondered their fate in Babylon and the meaning of it. The temptation, and in fact the norm, would be to adopt the gods of your conquerors and lose your religion. So should the political opposition do the same and bow to their fate? Of course, for the faithful, the answer to that would be no. But if not, then a plausible, credible explanation would have to be found for why they have fallen so far from political grace. The worshipping of false gods by the Israelites was the reason given by the Jews to explain why the Lord had allowed them to be conquered. The historical narrative allowed them to hold on to their cultural and religious beliefs despite being in a strange land. And by remaining true to their religion, they found a way back from exile with their identity intact. So is there a parallel here for the children of EDSA? And if so, then what? How can they credibly explain their fall from power and find their way back from political oblivion? Ninoy Aquino had espoused a belief in Christian socialism, which traced its roots to the attempts of an enlightened monarch in Denmark to liberate his people from serfdom through mass education. It was a human-centered form of capitalism, aimed at affording the full blossoming of ordinary citizens to reach their fullest potential. The success of this model is demonstrated by the fact that today Scandinavia is one of the wealthiest, least corrupt, and happiest places on earth. But the adoption of a neoliberal view by the EDSA regime with its idolatry of the market, espoused by Washington and mediated through market-enhancing institutions of governance promoted by the World Bank and IMF, was in effect what had caused the children of EDSA to go astray. This is what invited populist backlashes from the left in the form of Erap Estrada in 1998, from within with the apostasy of Gloria Arroyo in 2004, and from the right with the ascendancy of Rodrigo Duterte in 2016. Vice President Robredo, for her part, has emphasized the dynamism of the private sector for collective action by brokering donations between corporate foundations and needy communities. She has not lasted long in any of the public roles assigned to her, first as housing czar, then as co-chair of the Interagency Committee on Anti-Illegal Drugs, preferring instead to become a maverick policy entrepreneur. Her support for marginalized communities through her Angat Buhay program is still consistent, however, with a neoliberal view that public investment merely crowds out charitable spending. It's consistent with a minimalist role for the state, relying on the magic of the market to broker the needs of society through voluntary, altruistic donations by moneyed elite. Trickle-down economics, in effect. Government by NGO. Duterte didn't mind breaking with his tradition. He didn't kowtow to the international rules-based order. He offered instead a kind of tough love for the development of the Filipino by focusing on the social ills that have come about because of the aimless accumulation of wealth in pursuit of materialist consumerist culture. This tyranny of freedom, of unconstrained choice fostered by free markets, has only led to alienation, apathy, and addictive forms of behavior. Duterte, in acting like a strict father, establishing boundaries and disciplining his children, has stepped into the breach because while the EDSA narrative structured our political and economic ways of life, it had nothing to offer us from a social standpoint. Neither did the post-EDSA regime engage in the necessary work of political and electoral reforms needed to truly democratize participation in our society. With the recent passing of Noynoy Aquino, his former confidant, Representative Joey Salceda, offered an assessment of his legacy. He praised him for accomplishing many noble things while in office, but also said that Pinoy suffered from a lack of ambition due to his worldview, quote unquote. He had the most favorable macroeconomic conditions, but failed to seize the opportunities these presented. This lack of ambition was his cardinal policy failing. This is what obscured the original agapic vision of Noynoy's father for a human-centered form of development. This idolatry of the market is the folly that has led to their political exile. So it behooves the children of EDSA to return to the source for inspiration. If Duterte represents a consumptive love of country, a form of governance that destroys human life to preserve it, that breaks the law to uphold it, and if the EDSA regime represents a reciprocal kind of love, a form of governance that relies on transactional markets and padrino-based politics, then the agapic love of country, of actualizing individuals by investing in their human capacities, is what the successor to the EDSA regime must work towards. Only by rediscovering this forgotten vision can the children of EDSA rescue themselves from irrelevance. Acknowledging where they went wrong would go a long way towards healing the partisan divide with those who were once within their broad coalition, but no longer see themselves as part of it. The question is, who among their leaders today would be so humble as to do that? Dare I say none. And so, for the true believers in Ninoy's impossible dream, they may have to go outside the fold to find a leader who can reimagine the promise of EDSA and bring its children back from exile into the promised land.